About 18 years ago, I got my first job as a nurse at St. Mary's Hospital in Chicago. I had just graduated from nursing school, and it was the first time I was working in a real hospital. In the beginning, my duty was the day shift, from morning until 8 p.m., and over time I became familiar with almost every corner of the hospital. However, there was one place I had never entered, Ward 14. The ward was located close to the ICU and was only used for patients who were extremely critical or recovering from intensive care. The nurses rarely talked about it, and for some reason I always felt uneasy even walking near that hallway. About 2 weeks later, my night shift began for the first time. That night, the hospital felt unusually quiet and calm. Around 1:30 a.m., after finishing my duties in another ward, I finally had to make my first round in Ward 14. Holding the patient files, I slowly walked down the dim hospital corridor. The lights were faint, and the entire floor felt strangely silent. Inside the ward, there were 3 patients sleeping in their beds. I started checking their vitals and reviewing their files. One of the patients needed an injection, so I gave it and turned around to leave. Suddenly, I heard a deep male voice whisper behind me saying, "Turn off the drip, blood is coming out." My heart skipped a beat. I quickly turned around, but the bed behind me was completely empty. No one was there. A cold wave of fear ran through my body, and I quickly left the ward. Later, around 3:30 a.m., it was time for my final round. My steps felt heavy as I walked back to Ward 14. When I entered, I noticed something strange. It looked like a man was sitting on one of the beds. I thought he must be a patient, so I continued checking the other beds first. But when I turned back again, the man had disappeared. Confused and frightened, I looked around the room. Then I heard the same voice again, even closer this time, whispering, "Change the drip, blood is coming." Terrified, I rushed out into the corridor. Suddenly, the hallway lights started flickering violently, casting long, moving shadows across the walls. I sat on a chair, shaking with fear. My coworker, Sarah Mitchell, noticed my pale face and asked if everything was okay. I told her I was just feeling tired. The next morning, I went home completely exhausted and collapsed onto my bed. But the moment I closed my eyes, I heard the same whisper again, "Turn off the drip, blood is coming." My eyes shot open, and for a moment I saw a shadow of someone wearing a hospital patient gown walking past my bed before it disappeared. That evening, I returned to the hospital determined to understand what was happening. I began checking the old hospital records. Most of the files were recent, but one caught my attention. An old yellow file with faded pages. The name on it was Michael Sanders. According to the record, he had died in Ward 14 back in 1980, and the cause of death was severe blood loss caused by a malfunctioning drip. As I placed the file back, I suddenly felt a cold hand touch mine, but when I looked around, there was no one there. Later that night, when I stepped out of Ward 14, I saw a man walking slowly down the corridor toward me. He was wearing an old hospital patient gown that looked different from modern ones. His face was pale and sickly. As he passed me, he stared straight into my eyes with terrifying anger and shouted, "If you had changed my drip, I wouldn't have died." His face twisted into something inhuman, and then he vanished into thin air. I screamed and collapsed on the floor. When I woke up, I was in the doctor's office, surrounded by nurses and doctors. After that incident, Ward 14 was permanently closed. Some of the staff went to believe the spirit of Michael Sanders still haunted that ward. Even years later, security guards claimed that sometimes the light above bed 4 would turn on by itself, as if a nurse was still treating an invisible patient. And after that night, I never worked a night shift again. The fear stayed with me forever.